So, hello and welcome to our podcast Petra On Air. Today I have the honor to welcome Raja Katz. You better know with her nickname Raya in the Sky because she is very active in her Instagram account. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Petra. Thanks for the invite.
We are very honored that you managed to be here because recently you have a very demanding flight. Can you tell us more about it, please?
Absolutely. So just to introduce myself, my name is Raja Katz, as you said. I've been an airline pilot for 10 years now. I've spent 10 years flying short range on the Airbus A320, and I've now just recently transitioned to long haul flying on the Airbus A330. And that was quite busy, so I'm a little jet lagged, but it is wonderful.
And with regards to flight you did today, what was it about, please?
My last flight, you mean?
Yes.
My last flight was until yesterday. I landed yesterday from my trip to a very remote African country, which is Equatorial Guinea. It is in Central Africa, near to the equator. And it was really interesting, my first time there. And it was a night flight back. And I landed last morning. So yesterday morning, that is. It was very interesting to fly over Africa, see a lot of the different countries, the Sahara Desert too.
And you also gain an examination by that flight, I have heard.
That is right. The flight before that, I have finished my training. It was the final check ride to conclude my training on the Airbus A330, because what you do is when you learn to fly a new aircraft type, you go to the simulator first. And after simulator training, you have what is called line training, and that is training on the job. So you will fly with a captain that's also a training pilot, an instructor pilot. Because what you cannot train in the simulator is the daily operation, all the operational issues around flight, like passenger issues, boarding, fueling, all that stuff, and also the special issues related to each different airport. And that's why you fly with a trainer or an instructor. And that training was finished last week for me. So
big congratulations.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
And by the way, for general public to get to know more about Raja, so for 10 years she's already flying the Airbus A320. This Airbus can manage around 170 passengers. And recently she was upgraded for 330, which is the aircraft which can manage more than 250 passengers, depending on the variation of the aircraft. And it's a long-range aircraft. It means that it can go even to United States or to long-distance destination. And the biggest beast in your path is this 350, which is the aircraft which can, depending also on the variation of the aircraft, can get up to 300 passengers. So it's quite a lot of responsibility.
Right. That's a little spoiler alert because that's the next aircraft type I'm going to be trained on. I'm starting training soon on the Airbus A350. I haven't flown it yet up to this point, but I'm starting training soon and I'm very excited for it because it's brand new. It is super innovative in terms of technology. It is very fuel efficient too. It can seat up to 300 passengers and it can go very long distance. So it's I would say one of the most modern state-of-the-art aircraft we have nowadays. So I'm very blessed.
How do you feel about it? What's your emotion inside you?
I'm very excited. I've always loved my job and I've always loved flying. And I'm an Airbus kid. As you've just said, I've only flown Airbus aircraft throughout my career, but I love it. And the Airbus A350, as I said, it's state-of-the-art. It's like the Porsche for aircraft and aviation. It is very, very modern on the inside, even the cockpit, the displays, it's very advanced technology. So it's similar to what I've flown before, but leveled up in a way. So I'm very excited for it. I can't wait. And also the destinations are going to be further away from home. And I can't wait to explore the world.
I was a little bit searching information about you before our podcast. So I know that you are a big fan of tourism and traveling at all. Mm-hmm. Which is your most favorite destination?
In the entire world, you mean?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a big question. It really depends on what I'm up to. I love exploring new places. I love South Africa. I love the United States in terms of traveling because it's so versatile. There's so much you can do there. If you ask me what my favorite city in the world is, it's Oslo in Norway because I'm a huge fan of Norway. I love it. And for me, there's no vibe such as the vibe in Oslo. So I love that very much.
I think you do love the dolphin and the whales as well. There is also a place where you can like dive and snorkeling with dolphins in Norway.
That is right. Yeah, that is correct. I've tried to do that, or I've done it 2 years ago because that, as you said, I have a love for marine mammals and sharks. And there's various places in the world where you can snorkel and dive with whales. And in Norway, there's a special place. It's on the Northern Cape, so in Northern Norway, where you can actually dive or snorkel with orcas. And I've wanted to do that. So we went up there, and it's a flight to Tromsø and then 3 hours by car further northbound, which is pretty remote. And there's a fjord where all the orcas are resident. And you can go in the water and inlet dry suit, of course, and snorkel with them. Unfortunately, when we were on the boat, they did not allow us in the water because there were also humpback whales nearby, and humpback whales can breach anytime unpredictably. So it was not safe for us to get in the water, but the orcas were like a meter away from the boat. It was absolutely amazing. An amazing experience, yes.
Strong experience. And with regards, if we start with what is right now and what you are like about to do.
Okay.
On the other hand, I would like to go back to the stage when you actually start to think about becoming a pilot. What was your way? How you managed? Because you told me that you don't have any like familiar people in aviation or pilots around you. So how was your story? How you did decided to become an airline pilot?
That's right. I'm a first generation pilot, so I don't have any family background in aviation. And I wish I could tell you like that very key moment in my childhood that made me want to become a pilot, but I did not really have that. When I was 12 or 13 years old, I knew that I wanted to do that later in life, but it was just like annoying from within. I didn't have that one moment that changed everything. It was just like a fact that was there. That was the thing I wanted to do, and it was the only thing I wanted to do. And that can be a blessing, but it can also be a curse because I've put a lot of pressure on myself in order to achieve that, because it was like this or nothing for me. So I've always had that pressure of I want to do that, and I don't know if I want to do anything else, so it needs to work out for me. And I've planned it like throughout my entire teenage years. I've planned it. I started flying gliders when I was 15 because it was the first step I could take to go into aviation.
I can relate with it.
Yes, right. You did the same thing, right? That's where I learned the basic principles of flying and also teamwork. And I was introduced at a very, very early age to the concept of aviation safety, which I'm very thankful for. And then after I finished school, I applied at an airline-owned flight school in Europe. Back then, some airlines used to have their own flight schools, and they would have application tests that were very strict. But when you passed them, they would like pre-fund your training and train you to become their pilot. And I was very blessed that I was able to get into that school. So I did the training there, did my PPL, my single piston license there, spent 6 months in the US for that training. The rest I did in Germany. And when I was finished with the training, I started my type rating on the Airbus A320 to fly short range. And then I've flown for multiple airlines throughout my career, both flag carriers, premium carriers, and also low-cost carriers. So I've had quite a range of experiences in that regard.
How many hours do you have on multi-crew? Multi-crew is when you are flying the big planes and there is first officer and captain. So
it's above 3,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot of experience.
It could be more. I've I've spent a couple of years flying part-time because I've studied alongside flying for a couple of years before I abandoned that when COVID hit. That's just a side story, but that's why I went part-time. It could be some more hours, but I'm working on it. I'm collecting hours on long range now.
And do you also, because I know that some pilots, they are also instructors in general aviation. General aviation is the small aircraft like Cessna 152 or 50 or 172. So it means it's like a 2 or 4 seater single piston aircraft.
I've never been an instructor, no. I've only done my glider's license, and then I've started flight school. It was full-time, and I went right through my what's called MPL license. So that's a multi-crew license. It's similar to the ATPL, to the airline transport pilot license. Did that full-time, so I had no chance to become a flight instructor, or could have maybe after I finished that training. But I've never done any type of flight training myself. I will say, though, that at some point in my career, I became a CRM trainer. That's crew resource management. For those who don't know, it's the essential thing that we all rely on in commercial aviation. It is the concept of how we operate planes efficiently, how we use all the resources we have on board, and that involves cockpit crew, cabin crew, and everything and everyone around, like ATC controllers. It's a very specific concept related to aviation, and I've had the chance to become an instructor in that regard at one of my previous airlines, and I've done classroom training for that.
Very nice. What do you have learned from it? Because I was a glider instructor, and I knew that when you are in the position that you are kind of a teacher for somebody, in order to actually give the knowledge, you have to really get to know the exact topic so well that you can actually share your knowledge with somebody. And with regards to flying, in the aviation world, it's said that you will become a really good pilot once you are the flight instructor, because you will see all the mistakes the students does, and then you will be so much aware of it that if you are learning by experience, you will not doing that anymore. So relating to your CRM instructing, have you experienced something like that?
Well, it taught me a lot, but CRM is a perfect example of that is something that we do day in, day out in the cockpit. So the classroom days are more of a recurrent training that we need to do based on regulations and rules that just to obey the law. But that is something that is so essential to our work that I have the skills that I need to in order to teach it. But CRM is being taught to me every day by what I do. And I by no means I'm saying that I'm perfect or I don't make mistakes. I do every day, like all of us do. But I would say that from my attitude, I am living and breathing CRM because I know how important it is. It is actually quite a challenge to put it into simple words or to put it shortly, but it has to do with different aspects of how we perform our flights. It has to do with interpersonal aspects. That is the way we communicate. That is the way we work together as a team. It involves problem solving, decision making, leadership, teamwork, all of that. It also has to do with the technical aspects. So you need to know your plane. You need to have that system knowledge. You need to be able to apply it correctly in all situations. You need to be able to fly the plane, of course. And then the third thing is procedural. That means that we always follow the procedures that are laid down for our aircraft to be operated safely. And it is essential to follow these procedures correctly. And that is also a resource that we use. So as I said before, crew resource management means how do crews manage all the resources on board, like all the knowledge that is there, all the software, all the hardware, all the people that could be of help to operate safely. How do we manage those resources effectively so we have a safe flight? I know it can sound a little abstract, but in our specific branch, it is the essential concept.
I would like to also go back to your pilot's training, because you said that it was pre-funded. Means that the airline actually offer you the funds for your pilot training. And during the training, was there any challenges you faced?
Oh, plenty. Plenty. That is the thing. And I think a lot of people are aware that pilot training is hard. It is not a piece of cake, and it is not easy. That is not to discourage anyone from doing it, please. But you really have to want it in order to succeed, because it needs a lot of effort and a lot of time, and there's a lot of pressure involved too, because aviation is so expensive overall that also flight training, there are so many resources going into this that you cannot expect to be able to do the same thing over and over and over again until you feel super confident and you've done it 100 times and then move on to the next subject. That's not how it works in aviation. So you will always have the feeling of just barely getting by and barely being able to do the one thing. And then the next flight lesson is going to be full of new challenges and new things to learn. And your head will always tell you, wait, I can barely do the one thing. How am I supposed to learn more? And how am I going to succeed in it? The matter of the fact is that you are going to succeed, and you need to trust your flight instructors when they tell you that you're able to do it, because they have the experience and they know that you are able to do it. It will never feel like that during training, and you have to get used to that, and you have to cope with that and just tolerate that feeling and accept it, that that's how it feels, and you need to work with what you have. So going back to your question, flight training is full of challenges, like the theory part and the practical part as well. I think the most important challenge that I personally faced was doubting myself, because it put so many obstacles in my way and it was in my head. That's not to say that it was not a valid feeling, but I would constantly doubt myself. I would have imposter syndrome big time. For those of you who don't know, imposter syndrome is a psychological phenomenon or a behavioral pattern in your mind that constantly tells you that you kind of cheated your way up, and you're constantly afraid of being exposed as a fraud at some point, despite clear evidence of your competence. So it doesn't have to do anything with reality. It's not rooted in reality. It doesn't have anything to do with your skills. It's just your mind telling you that you're not good, and at some point it's all going to come out and everyone will know. And I think a lot of us know that feeling, especially women and young girls, but not only, boys too, guys too. And I've had that quite a lot during training. Yeah, I struggled with that a lot. And I still do to this day sometimes.
This is an interesting topic, because as being a coach and doing the prevention burnout, it's also about putting yourself on the first place instead of work. Mm-hmm. So if it's about healthy self-confidence.
Right.
And so the imposter syndrome is involved. And I was coaching not only women, but men who does have imposter syndrome. And it's also, from my point of view, it's about telling, okay, I was at the right time, on the right place, and I was lucky.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You don't put into yourself that it was your competencies and your skills that actually lead you to the place where you are right now. For this reason, I would like to ask you, what was your approach towards overcoming these obstacles on your way?
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because I can totally agree with with what you said about when we succeed, we always associate it with being lucky. And it's funny because when we don't succeed and we fail, we always blame ourselves. We don't say we have bad luck. We internalize it, right? We say it must be our fault. Whereas when we're like successful, then it must be someone else's fault, or someone else must be the reason for it. Right. And that is completely illogical and doesn't make sense, but that's our mind messing with us. So back to your question, I think there are various ways to cope with imposter. And I'm not an expert because I'm not a psychologist or anything, but what helped me personally is to rationalize it. So I know that it is a feeling. It is irrational by nature, and it doesn't make sense to put arguments as to why it doesn't make sense. That's not working. It's the same for, let's say, fear of flying. It's an irrational fear, and statistics don't help with that. because statistics are rational. It doesn't help, but they don't help with the irrational fear. So that's just a comparison. But still, that being said about the irrational feeling, for me, it helps to demystify the topic, to rationalize it. So what I will say is that, okay, you're feeling this, you have room to feel this. Let's give this feeling enough room to be there so it can eventually go away. But on the rational level, I will demystify it and I will call it out for what it is. So I will tell myself, Raya, this is imposter. This does not reflect reality. This is your brain messing with you. It is a psychological phenomenon. It is a pattern and it's occurring in everyone. Now it's occurring in you and it will go away. It will come and go. And now it's here. Let's invite it in for tea, but it won't stay overnight. So yeah, I'm trying to make room for it and look at it, have it there, and then it will go away. And that's usually very effective. Just calling it out, like calling it for what it is. Also, any type of exercise has proven to help me a lot with it. So go for a run or just go for a walk or whatever, because it gets the physical tension out of my body. So that helps a lot too.
I know that for many people, this is a topic that they would like to be avoid. And once more, because I would say this very important topic, because it's not even only aviation, it's in all professional. Absolutely. It happened to men or women, doesn't matter the gender. So actually, I don't believe that once you get to your pilot training, you said, oh, I do have an imposter syndrome, welcome. When was the point where you noticed that this is something I knew, this is something I need to work with, and how you would like to actually get, okay, this is an imposter syndrome and I can do walking or exercise, or I can manage, because once you actually find out what is it, you can know how to handle with it.
That's right. It took me years. In flight school, I had no idea what it's called or what it is. It's just that I am very strong-willed by nature and very ambitious. So I worked through it and pushed through it. And it took me a lot of energy, but I made sure that I always reached my goals despite that thing in my head telling me otherwise. That made it incredible hard, but that was in flight training, and it took me years, even throughout my career, until a couple of years ago, I realized what it is, because I've learned about it, I've heard about it, and that made it so much easier for me to identify it. So it was a journey, definitely. I think it helps to tell others about it, because as you said, it happens in every area and every field. It doesn't even have to be on a professional level. It's usually occurring among high achievers, people who are putting everything into what they love and working hard, and they are used to succeeding, but then at the same time, they can't believe that it's all their own work. So pretty much everyone can be affected by it. So it's important to talk about it.
I know you are biggest advocate also in your Instagram, Raya in the Sky, to put more women into aviation. So what's your approach towards it?
It has to do with my own story, of course, because I am a woman in aviation and I have, as I said, I have no familiar background in it. But also I had no role model and no one I can look up to or ask questions beforehand. I didn't know any pilot, let alone female ones. I had no contacts whatsoever. Of course, I started flying gliders and I had a lot of friends who wanted to become pilots too, but I didn't know anyone. So I had no mentor, if you will. And throughout the years when I became a professional pilot myself, and I've flown for a couple of years, I've had this nagging voice in my head that there was that desire to give back and to say, you know what, you're on the other side of that dream now. And that is such a blessing. I'm so incredibly lucky for everything that I was lucky enough to achieve. And I know it's not all luck, but I'm saying it's a privileged position. And I wanted to give back. So I've looked into various mentoring jobs, but it didn't work out, or I didn't end up doing that. And then I decided that social media is probably the biggest platform with the most reach, or the biggest audience that I could address. And I've created my account. I started my account last year. And my main mission is to support women in aviation, to inspire and motivate young pilots or aspiring pilots who want to go into aviation, girls, but not only, also guys. And also to create more visibility for women in aviation, because I think that's one pillar too, to normalize that. And my way of doing that is just showing myself at work, showing what I do.
Within the year you are on Instagram, how many people get interested into your content actually, more or less?
It's hard to say. Not everyone is following. But there are quite a few stories where I was lucky enough to inspire people to get into aviation. And, you know, people are so different. They have such different backgrounds and ages. There are people of all ages. And I have very young girls, as young as 13, who want to become pilots, who had to be introduced to the concept of cadet pilots, of programs that encourage very young people or teenagers to get into aviation, and that will inspire them and help them to get their first steps into the general aviation, as you said. I've also had people who were older, who had that career in some other field, but were not happy and always wanted to become a pilot, but just needed that last push to see someone do that looked like them. And that's a girl, or a woman, I should say. She's in their late 20s, and she has wanted to get into commercial cockpits all her life, but she didn't dare to because she didn't have the confidence to do it. And that's what I said relates to the general issue of not having enough representation of female pilots. And that's one thing we can work on. Anyway, she's working on her pilot's license now, and I hope to see her in the cockpit one day.
Wow, that's incredible story.
Yeah, I'm so inspired by that, and also the resilience and strength to start over in your late 20s or early 30s. I have so much respect for that, because there's a lot of risk involved, and there's a lot of personal accountability that you take in order to say, you know what, my life as I live it now doesn't make sense to me anymore. I'm going to change a lot. I'm going to make a lot of changes, and I'm going to take that risk because I want to follow my dream. I have so much respect for that.
We speak a lot about safety and how serious job is it. Have you experienced any funny stories during your pilot training?
Oh yeah, a lot. Let me remember some of them. Well, when you start flying gliders and also single piston planes like Cessnas, you're being introduced to the concept of thermals pretty fast. So that's warm air rising and cold air descending. I'm sure a lot of people have heard about that, like the sauna concept. That's happening all the time around us. And gliders who don't have engines use that because they circle in the thermal updrafts in order to gain altitude. But these thermal updrafts and downdrafts, if you just cross them, will create some turbulence and some bumpiness. And that's also for single piston aircrafts, of course, Cessnas, etc. And when I did my PPL, which is my private pilot license in that single engine aircraft, I did it in the US, as I said before. It was in the desert and it was extremely bumpy. And even though coming from gliders and knowing thermals, I had no idea it could get this bumpy. It was crazy. And I got sick a lot and I threw up a lot. I will say that on air now. Oh my God, I can't believe that. But usually you get used to it after 1 or 2 flights. So you will probably get sick, have your little bag with you, and then hope it doesn't happen again. The next flight, maybe it happens again. Petra, it was 7 flights for me. I am the current record holder at that flight school. And it only went away after 7 flights. So that was torture for me because I felt sick all the time. I was so nauseous. Anyway, now I can laugh about it, but I had a rough start, let me tell you. I was not cut out for that, but it was tough, but I was tougher.
Yeah, it goes back to the resilience.
Yeah, the resilience. Yeah, that's right.
If we speak about the resilience during your own pilot training, what resilience means for you?
The term resilience means that you are able to get up after a setback, to get back on your feet after a failure, and to be able to move on and to come out stronger out of a bad situation. And that is incredibly important for pilots, but also for other professions. It is a skill set that you acquire by facing challenges with the risk of failure and also by failing itself. You need to be able to fail and to go through that, to push through that feeling and to look at it and to come out of that situation stronger than you were before. It is important for pilots, especially those who fly passengers, because if you think about it, no one wants pilots who just give up if there's a problem or panic. You need to be able to, or you need to want to face the problem and to fight and put in whatever it takes to solve it. That's a character trait, but it is also the skill that needs to be acquired. And you learn that in flight school. And you don't only learn that during your flight lessons, but also on a meta level by facing all those challenges I was talking about earlier. Because you're constantly at that point of, how am I going to make this? How on earth am I going to ever succeed in this? Because I'm only this far from failure all the time, like 24/7. There's so much sleep that I'm missing. There's so much work I'm putting into this. I'm a wreck in my mind. And just pushing through that helps a lot, because what people don't realize is that that's what built resilience. That is like working with what you have. You don't have enough sleep. Okay. You don't have enough time to prepare for the exam. You need to work with what you have. Take what you have, manage your resources, again, resource management, and make the best out of it. Be creative, think out of the box, make it work. And that's something that you are faced with over and over again in flight school. And people don't realize that that all makes sense, but only looking back in hindsight and connecting the dots, because that's what eventually will make you a good pilot.
I would like to go back to the women empowerment we have spoken recently. So, as for the reference, I'm a founder of Petra AIR Foundation, and we are supporting women in aviation, especially the one who would like to become pilots, as Raja is. And we do the support financially with the zero interest rate and with the mindset. That's why we are right now doing this podcast, in order to
inspire
and to make the positive mindset for those who wants to. And the whole idea of the project is that men takes very important role in that. We previously spoke, not in the podcast, but in our meetings, about men in aviation and how men actually support us. Because it's not just about men who is doing a harmful thing or questioning our abilities to be a pilot, but there are a lot of men out there who actually do support the idea of more female into aviation, because it might cultivate the environment in aviation, as well as, let's admit it, that female and male thinking is different. And there is, even in US, there was a research and they put female only and male into the groups. They have same tasks, same time. And what do you believe who won this challenge?
Well, what was the challenge?
It was an army project. And they have to cope with the project. It was the same project with the same time limit. And it was a competition, like who will manage the issue, who will succeed. It was something with tanks.
Well, it is really hard to say with that limited information. I don't want to generalize like stereotypical thinking. I would assume maybe the women are better at task sharing, or maybe
actually both fail.
Both failed?
Yes.
Because they need to work together, you mean?
Yes.
Right.
Because the male, they went straight into action, but without the planning, the plan... The action was destroyed because it was not well planned. And the women thought the plan for so long time that at the time they have to go there and they have to solve it, the situation, they didn't have enough time to complete it. And I would say that the main message of working men and women together is that we both have our gifts and our competences to be given, and if we work together on some goal or vision, we are more efficient.
That is true. Yeah, absolutely. I will say though that I personally am of the opinion that of course also female only groups or male only groups can create effective outputs when it comes to challenges and tasks. We see that every day, and aviation wouldn't be safe because we have 5% women, and the guys can do it. They've proven they can do it. But I absolutely agree with you saying that there's an effect of synergy if we just complement each other, and if we take the strength of both genders and put it together in order to create better outputs. And also, that's just to speak about the positive effects of working together. But if we talk about women in aviation, we have 50% of female population. It is crazy that women are so underrepresented in our job because there is no difference in potential and in competency. And I think we need to start there when it comes to why there are so few women in aviation. There's no difference in competence. There is, as far as I know, no difference in accessibility, because I'm not aware of that women have lesser access to the training methods or to flight schools or whatever. So the only thing I can think of that we lack as women compared to men is the self-confidence and the representation. And I think it can't be overstated how important that is, that when you're young, that you see someone who looks like you doing the thing that you want to do. It is that the same goes for a fireman, for example. There's not a lot of fire women out there. So girls tend to have it harder going in there because they don't have that inspiration. They don't have that role model. They don't have that, oh, I want to be like her. And that's what the aviation industry lacks. The female role models, the representation, and we need to change that in order to inspire future generations. So going back to what you said, it is absolutely desirable that there are more women in aviation because we can create a better environment and we can be more effective and shape the aviation industry as a whole just by adding the strengths of women. But also it is a matter of fairness and justice to have those who represent 50% of our society represented in all different industries.
So Raja, my next question is, what discipline means to you?
Discipline is something that's super important in my field in aviation because it relates so closely to what we do on the flight deck, but it also has a huge impact on my personal life. I think a lot of people consider discipline to be this harsh thing, to be super strict with yourself, but it is actually a form of self-love, and it is tough love. It doesn't always feel like love getting up at 6 or whatever. I don't get up at 6 all the time. I'm a night owl. But the notion that it is important to sacrifice what you want now in order to achieve something important later on, to have success later on, is super important when you work towards a goal or a dream. I think that is self-love, just sacrificing that good feeling now in order to invest in yourself and be not a better version of yourself. We've talked about that before. I don't like the term better version of yourself or best version of yourself. I want to be my favorite version of myself. I want to feel good. I don't want to put out the best performance in all aspects of my life. I want to perform well in my job, absolutely. And I want to be a good person. But I want to feel good in my own skin, and that's my priority.
That's very nice. I rely on it. I do believe that it's not about being the best version of yourself. But previously we speak about limitation beliefs, like something self-criticism. And I do believe that if you are able to get over of the things that other people are talking to you, and you are more yourself, but it's not the best version. It's like the person who you truly are.
Right.
That's the thing. That's the thing. That's the point.
Right. And that has to do with getting to know you more, because the moment that you really truly realize and internalize that you are worthy and you are valuable, and that value is not tied to your job or your profession or to a degree or to whatever it is that you do for others, but it is within you, that will change your whole life. It is truly the epiphany that you have when you realize that the moment you lay in bed in the morning and you haven't even opened your eyes, you are worthy that very moment. There's nothing you need to do in order to be worthy. And you need to realize that. And everything that comes after that, how you perform at work, what you do to others, whether you're a good person or not, that comes after that. But that value can't be taken away from you by someone else who thinks you cannot do this or cannot do that or cannot achieve your dream or whatever. You are worthy. And it is super important not to tie that worthiness or that value that is within yourself to a specific outcome. Your dream is an add-on, and that is something that will impact the quality of your life. But you, the way you are a wonderful human being, and you need to understand that first.
How discipline relates to your achievements?
It does. I mean, I have a job where discipline is very important, and that's not to say that we are all robots. You know how they say in research that discipline is like a muscle and it gets tired over time. So you need to pick your battles and decide where to apply that discipline, what is most important to you. And then you have also areas in your life where you can allow yourself not to be disciplined. Because as I said, that muscle needs to rest too, and you cannot be 100% in all respects. So I put a lot of discipline into my job. It always has to do with how well you want to perform and how you consider your own professionalism and what you see in your job that needs to be done. I think we have different standards as to how we want to work. Like everyone has their own standard. And as I said, I've always been very ambitious, and there's a certain picture in my head that tells me how I should do my job. And it's a way that I have in my head that says how it should be done in order for it to be good work. And I always want to perform well. I always want to deliver good work. That is super important to me. I don't want to be just any pilot. I want to be a top of the notch pilot. And that requires work. That requires work when you're on your weekends. That requires considering your sleep schedule, being disciplined, going to bed early. Discipline is not about working all night on a project, being on your computer all night. That's not discipline, because you should have done it throughout the day in order to sleep at night, because that's discipline too. Your body needs rest. Be disciplined and give it that rest. So it is complicated. I think we all work on being disciplined, but to me, I would say I'll really focus on being disciplined in my job, but I also try to be somewhat disciplined when it comes to my health. Like regular exercise and diet is a big thing for me too. But I love to snack. You know, my friend Samantha, shout out Samantha Chanfor. She's another beautiful pilot from Brazil. She always says, life is short, eat the cake. So let me add that.
Good advice. If you would like to give any good advice to your small Raya, who just is not good at math but is willing to become a pilot, what would you tell her?
Don't be afraid. It's all going to work out. Because everything I needed was already there. Like the ambition and the will to work hard. It was all there. There was just no point in being afraid, but you don't know that when you're young. And I wish I could have done everything in the same way without being afraid. But that's life.
I have a good skin. That's such a nice message.
I hope it helps someone out there.
I'm quite sure that it will.
Thank you.
Yes, so I think, is there anything you would like, which was not mentioned during our talk, which you would like to specifically tell, and I haven't asked for?
Just for the audience out there, just to make sure that point comes across, because it's really close to my heart. It's really important to me to restate that. I have people texting me every day who are being told by others that they cannot achieve their dreams. I mean, I'm specifically in the aviation field, but I think it goes for other fields as well. But there are so many people who are told by their parents or by others, by their teachers, that they cannot become pilots because those people specifically can't envision them and can't picture them do that. Please do not listen to those people. It must hurt to have your parents be against what you want to do in life. But do not think that any of these people know what you can or cannot achieve. It is super important to believe in yourself. Only you knows you. You know yourself, and you know that if you're willing to put in the work and you have that dream and you have that fire within you, please do it. And please do not listen to that outside noise. Aviation is not like any other profession. Chances are that passion will not go away, I'm telling you. There are people in their mid-30s that told me, or they keep telling me all the time, they've wanted to become a pilot since they were 5. And they pursued a different career path because they thought it would go away. It won't go away. Chances are it won't. Maybe, but usually it won't go away. Please pursue your passion. Give it a shot. I'm not telling you to be financially irresponsible or anything. You make your own decisions. But please do not listen to others. That is a very important message I want to give you. You can do this, and please believe in yourself. It sounds old, but it is so true. You rock this.
Thank you very much. It goes emotional. And I think it's this could be the last message because it was a very powerful one. So, Raja, I would like to thank you very much for being in the podcast. And for you, I would like to mention that if you are pretty much like the talks we have, we do have Instagram and Facebook, as well as Raja has. Raja in the Sky. In the Instagram, you can find her, so you can follow her for more inspirational talks and like tips from the aviation field. And we look forward for the next month for another podcast. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for the invite again, and thank you for watching.